Good day, everyone. My name is Roger SRCT II, and my topic is organizing variable practice. Experiencing practice variability benefits skills learning. It is important that we next consider how to organize the variable experiences within a practice session or unit of instruction. For example, suppose you are an elementary school physical education teacher organizing a teaching unit on throwing for your classes. You have determined that you will devote 6 classes period to this unit. You want the student to learn 3 variations of the throwing pattern: the overhand, underhand, and side throwing pattern. The practice organization question for this situation is this: how should you arrange these 3 different throws for the practice during the 6 classes period? The answer is you need to make a program to manage your schedule and time. This is an example of a program. It shows the 3 possible arrangement. So mao ni ang schedule or program. Dayon makita nimo sa left side is block practice, random practice, and serial practice. Block practice: when a learner performs a single skills over and over with repetition being the key. So ang example ani is dribble. One skill lang, dribble lang siya, dayon balik-balik na siya. So next is random practice. Our practice is schedule in which various discrete is serial skills that are required for performance in the sports are practiced in random order, and where the learner does not practice the same task on 2 consecutive attempts. So ang example ani is sa atong ipalagay sa swimming, 50 meters isa na siya ka set, 50 meters freestyle. So humanon yun animo. Then first set, ang sunod na pud nimo is backstroke. So 50 meters backstroke ta ka. So lahi-lahi siya, dili siya kanang freestyle lang ka permi. So ang serial practice is a practice sequence in which different skills perform and mix but fixed. So kani siya ang serial practice is mura gyapon siya random pero fixed na ni siya. So atong ipagpalagay nga nag freestyle ka 25 meters ra, dili siya 50 meters, dili one set. Freestyle 25 meters, then ang katunga sa 50 meters nga 25 is imong i-backstroke. So mao na siya ang serial practice. All classes in block practice are 30 minutes long, but the random and serial practice schedule are divided into 5-minute segment each of the throwing pattern. Dayon, and each day the students practice 2 sets of each 5 minutes throwing pattern sa random and serial practice. So taga-adlaw ang students kay naka-experience og tag 6 ka tag 5 minutes sa random practice and serial practice. So let's go to the contextual interference approach to organizing variable practice. According to William Bathig, 1979, who first demonstrated this effect, introduced the term contextual interference, refers to the interference which is the memory of performance disruption or interfere that result from performing multiple skills or variation of a skills within the context of practice. The way a practice schedule is organized will involve different amount of contextual interference. A high amount of contextual interference occurs at one extreme. As you can see in the table, the amount of contextual interference that is possible in a practice situation is portrayed as a continue running from high to low. Also presented are some sample variation schedule in terms of how it's related to the amount of contextual interference created by the schedule. Let's go to the research evidence of the contextual interference effect. The first evidence of the contextual interference effect for the motor skill learning was reported by Shea and Morgan, 1979. Results showed that the random practice schedule lead to poorer performance during practice but better performance on retention and transfer tests. The contextual interference effect outside the laboratory. One of the first experiments that presented this type of evidence was reported by Goody and McGill, 1986. College women with no prior badminton experience practice the short, long, and drive serves in the right service court. They practice the serve 3 days a week for 3 weeks with 36 trials in each practice session for a total of 324 trials during the practice period. In this study, the block practice group practiced the serve each day for of each week, while in the random practice group, they practice each serve randomly in every practice session. As you can see, block practice is square and random practice is circle. So makita ninyo nga sa performance is mas high ang block practice, but pag abot sa retention is low na siya. Then ang random practice is low siya sa performance, then pag abot sa retention is high na siya. Contextual interference influence judgments about learning. The contextual interference effect is another example of this type of situation. Judgment about how much we are learning. While the practice is referred to as metacognition, which concern that we know about what we know. Judgment about how much people are learning during practice. An important study by Simon and Bjork, 2001, investigated how will people who are practicing multiple variations of motor skill can use their own learning during practice, which is commonly referred to as metacognition. The significance of the study is twofold. First, it was the first investigation of metacognition as it relates to the learner of motor skills. The Simon and Bjork 2001 experiment participants, 48 undergraduate university students. Motor skill practice. The task required participants to learn to press three specified 5K sequences on the number pad of computer keyboard. The sequences defined in the patterns of numbers to press the overall goal movement times, empty. Sequence 1 was the 95123K with a 900 millisecond movement time goal. Sequence 2 was the 36584Ks with a 1200 millisecond movement times goal. Sequence 3 was the 42589Ks with a 1500 millisecond movement time goal. Practice conditions. Participants practice each sequence in a block or random order until the perform third successful trial for each sequence. That is, they pressed later in the practice session. Knowledge of result was provided after each trial in terms of A. Whether is not the correct case had been pressed, B. the annual movement times for the trial, and C. the number of milliseconds faster or slower the actual movement time was than the goal movement times. Block practice schedule. All trials of each sequence were practiced as a unique set of trial until the third trial criterion was achieved for the sequence 900, 900, 900, 1200, 1200, 1200, 500, 1500, 1500, 1500, 1500. Random practice schedule. Each of the three sequences was practiced in a random order until the 30 trial criterion was achieved for each sequence. So as you can see, block is triangle, then random is circle. So makita nato na ang random is high siya sa performance, then high po siya sa retention. Then ang block practice is low siya sa performance, then low po siya sa retention. So let's go to the application of the contextual interference effect of the physical therapy of strokes patients. A study by Hanlon 1996 demonstrated the benefits of a random practice schedule for the physical therapy of unilateral stroke patients who need a rehabilitate the use of their hemiparatic example, partially paralyzed arm to perform functionally movement sequences. Participants: 24 adults patients with chronic hemiparesis due to a unilateral cerebrovascular accident (CVA), which is commonly called a stroke. Movement sequence practice. Participants use their hemiparetic arm to perform a 5-step sequence designed to approximate step needed to open 1 open cupboard door, 2 grasp a coffee cup by the handle, 3 lift the cup of its shelf, 4 place the cup on the counter, 5 release the grasp. Practice conditions. Random practice schedule 10 trials in 1 session per day until participants achieve the performance criterion of 3 consecutive correct trials between each trial of the movement sequence. Participants perform 3 other tasks with a hemiparatic arm. 1 pointing, 2 touching specified object, 3 touching specified spots on a horizontal surface. Block practice is scheduled 10 trials in 1 session per day until the participants achieve the performance criterion of 3 consecutive correct trials. No practice control condition, no practice trial. Retention test. All participants perform the 5-step movement sequence for 5 trials 2 and 7 days after the end of the practice session. Result: practice trials. No statistically significant difference between the random and block practice groups for the mean number of trials required to achieve the performance criterion. Retention test. The random practice group performed significantly more successful trials on both sensation test than the block practice group and the no practice control group. Interestingly, the block practice group did not differ from the non-practice control group in the number of correctly performed trials on the first retention test, but performed significantly better on the second retention test. The researchers have also proposed that several learning characteristics may limit the effect of contextual interference on skill learning. Age and skill level appears to the most likely limiting factors. When participants in studies have been children, the highest amount of contextual interference typically do not enhance learning. Hilbert, London, and Solomon, 1996, found that low-skilled students in university tennis classes perform forehand and backhand stroke better on retention tests following block practice, whereas high-skilled students perform no differently following block or alternating trial practice schedules. Badagoli and ACE 2004 presented different but encouraging perspective. The challenge point refers to the implement of specific practice conditions that will automatically challenge the person in a way that will exchange skill learning. Determining the challenge point involves a consideration of both the difficulty level of skill being learned and the skill level of the learner. Two types of difficulty. Number one, nominal and functional. Nominal is a task specific and inherent perceptual and motor requirements of the task. Number two, functional, related to the skill level of a person. Hypothesis makes two predictions concerning the implementation of level contextual interference in practice schedule. First, random practice will be optimal for learning skills with the lowest level of difficulty, but less optimal for skill with the highest level of difficulty. Second, for beginners or those who will low skill levels, lower levels is contextual interference will be optimal, while higher levels of contextual interference will be more effective for a skilled individual.